Hello everybody and welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Now today I'm going to be making some ring donuts. That's the donut with the hole in the middle. And once I've made them, I'm going to coat some in sugar and some in a chocolate ganache. So for the ring donuts we make a bread dough which we allow to rise, and then we cut out our donut shapes, allow them to rise again, and then we fry them. So for the ingredients for the donuts, I have 500 grams, which is 4 cups of strong white bread flour. I have 50 grams, which is 1/4 of a cup of caster sugar. I have 40 grams, which is 3 tablespoons of butter, just under 3 tablespoons in fact. I have 10 grams of easy bake yeast, that's 1.5 sachets. The easy bake is the instant yeast, not the active dried yeast. The active dried is where you add liquid and allow it to activate. This easy bake or instant yeast goes straight into the flour. I have a teaspoon of salt, and I have 2 medium eggs, that would be large in the USA. I also have 150 millilitres of whole milk, which is half a cup plus 2 tablespoons, and I have 130 millilitres of warm water, which is half a cup plus 2 teaspoons. So the first thing I'm going to do is to put my flour and my sugar and my yeast into the bowl of my stand mixer, and I'm just going to use a whisk to move those around and get them mixed in a little bit. And then I'm going to put my dough hook on, and I'm going to add in my eggs, the salt, the warm milk, the 40 grams of butter, which I've melted just for convenience. You can have it very soft rather than melted if you want, but melted works fine. And I'm going to add in about 1/2 to 3/4 of the warm water. I'm going to retain some because we may not need all the water. And then I'm just going to mix that on a slow speed for a couple of minutes until the flour all gets combined and we start to get a sticky dough. And then I'm going to increase the speed to medium, and I'm going to mix it for 10 minutes until the dough comes away from the bowl and we have a nice elastic smooth dough. Now I should say that it will be necessary to scrape down the bowl while you're doing this on slow, just to make sure that all the flour can be incorporated. Okay, so I've kneaded the dough in the mixer for about 10 minutes, and it's smooth and it's still tacky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tip that out onto a floured work surface. Then I'm going to shape it so that we can prove it until it doubles in size. So we'll just take some flour onto our work surface. And then we'll tip the dough out. Now I should say that as you're kneading this in your mixer, or you can do it by hand, if you find that it's too sticky, you can add more flour, and if you find that it needs all the water, you can gradually add in the rest of the water. I didn't need all of my water. I probably had about 2 tablespoons of water left, so I used about 100 millilitres. And then with the dough out, I'm actually going to just coat it in the flour like that, and turn it over and give it a few little kneads. But you need to keep it floured or it will get too sticky. And that's just doing this, is just creating some tension, which is helping to stretch the gluten. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this into a greased bowl. I'll put it in top side down and then I'll turn it over so that the top and the bottom is greased. And I'm going to cover that, and I'm going to leave it for between an hour and a half and 2 hours in the temperature I have here, so that it's doubled in size. And then when it's doubled in size, I'll come back and we'll go on to the next steps. Okay, well, it's actually just been about an hour and I've seen that my dough has doubled in size. Maybe the kitchen is slightly warmer today than usual. So what I'm going to do is to tip the dough out onto a work surface. And I've floured the work surface, and I'm going to pat the air out of it like that. And I'm actually going to sprinkle some flour over the top. Then I'm going to roll this out to a thickness of about 1 centimetre or ½ an inch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I've got everything floured well, so I'm going to move it around, make sure it doesn't stick. And that's about ½ an inch, I think. That's probably good enough. So then I'm going to cut out circles. Now I have 2 implements here. One is an 8 centimetre cookie cutter. and I'll cut out around like that, and then I have to go with that I have just a piping nozzle, and I'm going to use that to cut out the centre. If I can get that out. Of course, now I have sticky, slippery hands, but I take that out. Didn't make a very good job of that. And part of the reason for that was I should have floured it first, I think. So we'll try that one more time. Yes, that comes out much easier like that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to place those on a baking sheet, but I'm actually going to open the holes up just a little bit more as I do so. And on the baking sheet I have put parchment paper which I've very lightly floured. Now I also have this device which should do all the work for me. So we'll try. And that's done that quite well. Right, so then I'm going to put the rest onto the baking trays. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover those with some plastic wrap, and I'm going to let them rise for another 30 minutes. And while they're rising, I'm going to heat a pan of oil to a temperature of about 180 Celsius, that's 350 Fahrenheit. I have to be very careful with the oil, so I'm using a pan which doesn't have a long handle because they're very easy to knock the oil everywhere. So I'll heat the oil to 180 Celsius, 350 Fahrenheit, then I'll come back and we'll fry the doughnuts. Our doughnuts have rested again for another 30 minutes while I've been heating the oil to 180 Celsius, 350 Fahrenheit. So what I'm going to do now is to drop the doughnuts into the oil, I think two at a time probably, and cook them for 1 minute on each side. Then I'm going to take them out and put them onto a wire rack for cooling. So we'll get on and we'll do that straight away. So we'll cook them for about a minute on each side until they're a nice golden brown colour. And I'm just going to test the oil again. The temperature will drop as you put the dough into the oil, of course. So that has dropped. So I'm going to turn that up just a little bit. I'm going to pop that bubble. And then I'm going to turn them over. As best I can. And you will get a white ring around the middle of them, of course. And then, when they're a nice golden brown underneath, we're going to put them onto a wire rack, and while they're still warm, I'm going to put them in some caster sugar, to coat them in caster sugar. That's for some of them. For the others, I will make a ganache once they've cooled down and cover them with a chocolate ganache. So that should be cooked by now. So we'll take that out, and that one out, and we'll put some more in. And while they're cooking, I'm just going to pick one of these up and put it into the sugar and just toss it around in the sugar a little bit to get it coated. And then I'm going to put them onto another rack for them to cool down. So with our donuts cooled down, I'm going to make a chocolate ganache, and for that I have 100 grams of dark chocolate. You could use milk chocolate. I have 60 millilitres of double cream or heavy cream, and I have 2 tablespoons, 28 grams of butter. So what I'm going to do is to put the chocolate into the cream, and I'm going to put that onto a double boiler. So a pan of simmering water with this bowl over the top, and I'm going to stir that until the chocolate melts into the cream. Then I'm going to take it off the heat and put the butter in and stir that in until that melts and makes it nice and glossy, and then we're ready to dip our donuts. Okay, so that's our chocolate and cream fully melted together. So I'm going to drop the butter in, and I'm going to stir that until that's all melted as well. As you can see, I also fried off the little ones, which I keep eating. So that's melted the butter. I'm just going to let that cool down a little, as it will thicken slightly as it cools down, and then I'll come back and we'll dip our doughnuts into that. So our chocolate ganache has cooled down a little, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a donut. I'm going to dip it in the chocolate like that, and then I'm going to put it onto the rack for the chocolate to cool. That's all of the 6 done like that. Now I do have more dough, so I'm going to make more doughnuts, but I've just made 12. I think I can probably get another 4 or 5 out of that dough. So that's basically the doughnuts done, but what I'm going to do now is just to sprinkle a few little whatever you might call them, sprinkles or coloured strands or whatever, onto the chocolate, just to give it a little bit extra colour and decoration. And then I'm going to let them sit until the chocolate has set nicely. And that's going to be it for this video. I've eaten the little holes that I cut out, and I fried those, so I've eaten those, so I'm not going to taste these. I know exactly what they taste like. So there we have our doughnuts. So it's quite a simple recipe, a little bit fiddly, but it's quite simple, and it's very rewarding. They're nice. They're best eaten on the day they're made. That's why 12 is a good number if you've got a family, but maybe halve the recipe if you don't need quite so many. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, please give me the thumbs up below the video and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there will be an eye that you can click on, and that will take you to the recipe on my blog, and I'll put a link to it as well below the video. I will then be back with you with another recipe in the very near future, so until then, happy baking.